Everyone, and welcome to the WPQC series of webinars. My name is Meeta and I will be your host for today. Thank you for joining us for Why Business Cases Fail webinar. Before we start, I do ask that you please type your questions in the chat window throughout the presentation. Our presenter will answer them at the end of his presentation. The session today will be facilitated by Project Management Evangelist and the CEO of PQC International, Frank Payne. Frank has over 20 years of experience from corporations and has served as a U.S. Army Combat Commander. Additionally, he has $6.5 billion worth of hands-on experience on hundreds of projects ranging from engineering, information technology, process improvement, construction, manufacturing, and human resources projects across 8 countries globally. So with further ado, I'd like to turn it to our speaker for the day, Frank Payne.
Welcome to the seminar. Welcome to the webinar. Welcome to this virtual lunch that we're doing here. Today we're going to spend time talking about why business cases fail. And I want this to be a little bit active. And here's what I mean by that. I want to make sure that we talk a little bit about today. Because as we walk through this webinar today, while you're having lunch, we're going to spend some time talking about why, what are the reasons why bad business cases can lead to wasted billions of dollars in companies today. The other thing I'm going to talk about is the need for business case methodology. You have to have a roadmap when you're building a business case. The need to buy the business case before buying technology. I'll get into what I mean by that. Then I'm going to spend some time talking about the 10 steps to write an outstanding business case. And then we'll wrap it up with business case methodology and also some best practices with methodology. When I think about a business case, I'm going to sort of guide you a little bit. When I think about a business case, I think about business, I think about what's going on in the corporation, but I also want you to make a note here. You need to also be prepared to write a business case about yourself. Because in the world we live in today, we all need to justify our existence. What value are you bringing to your company? What value are you driving with your company today? And so, if you look at this, 6% of the CFOs said that a form ROI analysis is, think about it, 6% of the CFOs in corporate today, 6%. That's a small percentage with the amount of money being spent in corporations. 30% have no formal approach to evaluating return on investment. That is amazing right there, all right? So here's the thing. But we at CFO Magazine, that is verified by everything they're putting out in the marketplace today. 6%, guys. The number of projects. Think about the number of events that goes on in corporations. And yet still we find that we do not have a business case for it. Why are we spending corporate dollars without any kind of justification? If your PA management consultant found that 40% of survey respondents said they trusted the business case presented to them. 40%. Now, is it good? Well, they say that really it's not a believable thing that we focus on. A lot of people do business cases, but are they following any kind of methodology? We are wasting billions of dollars in corporations today because of this. So as we move through this, we say business cases are too often presented, and have all this technical verbiage. But look what it said. It said business case. Hold on. Hey, everybody hears out there?
Let me call back.
about that. For some reason, the call dropped. I need to verify that everybody is listening in. I need to make sure you can hear me as I continue. Good. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. If we talk about business case, we talk about how much money is being wasted. We need to make sure that business cases are not always written in just technical verbiage, because it's not really giving us what we're looking for. When we talk about a business case, we're talking about financial and other justifications for this. Not just the technical verbiage that goes along with it. We want to make sure that we're driving the business case to see what we got here. So what we're going to do is talk about the business case methodology and look at three major benefits of this. So let's look at the first one. The first one, when you talk about a business case, we have faster decisions being made, because we can consolidate them now, bring things together, and be more efficient when we talk about how we drive a business case. We're going to get more detail of the methodology later on. The second thing that we look at, you got to keep it simple. Standard investment process. We got to streamline and be consistent how we evaluate a business case. You cannot evaluate a business case one way today and another way tomorrow, because then you will not have validated data to justify what you're doing. The third reason is profitable IT investments. Here we say we got to be diligent about investing. How are we spending company dollars to make this thing work? What are we doing to drive revenue? What are we doing to drive profitability? What are we doing to justify billions of dollars that are being spent in corporations today? So as we get into more about this, use methodology to make sure we're consistent, because we all know that when I talk about a methodology, I'm talking about a roadmap. I'm talking about being able to go from point A to point B to point C, but have a specific milestones along the way. The methodology will keep us consistent with how we're building these business cases, because we need to make sure we have justification to drive it. And so, this case that I'm talking about is a justified proposed investment, so that we make sure that we make some good decisions. We make sure that the investment definition is feasible. We make sure we have a good financial model. We make sure, just as important, that we have an outstanding plan. Because without these pieces, ladies and gentlemen, you don't have a business case. You have a document made in Microsoft Word. So we want to make sure that we have the right information to drive our business case. Now, so what about treating, look at technology? A lot, we get so hung up on the technology, the application, the software, the hardware. My thing is, whatever you're doing with this business case, you need to make sure that you got a good, strong cash flow analysis that's been done with this. Because you're spending money. Am I going to get some money back? Because when we talk about return on investment, that means you're making a dollar investment into something. You expect something back. You want a return on investment. Your company may say, I'm looking for an 18% return on investment. I'm looking at an internal rate of return of some number. You have to be quantifiable. You need to understand what the cash flow is going to happen with this particular project as you begin to look at it. So, how do we do this? How do we make this happen? I'm going to walk you through 10 steps to write an outstanding business case. And I want to walk us through this carefully, because I need you to understand how to walk through it and why each step is very important. Let's look at step number one. One is the problem. Have the performance problem and the root cause. Check with your team and say, why are we doing this? What is the problem that we're trying to address? What is the problem that we're trying to solve? You got to have a clear definition of the problem. The problem itself needs to be crystal clear. I need to make sure you have a SMART problem. S-M-A-R-T. You need to have a SMART problem. You need to make sure that you get to the root cause of this. You need to make sure that you spend time with your team redefining what do that really mean and how you're going to make that happen. Let's step number two. Step number two says complication. An accurate reason for change and find sponsors. Right? You got to make sure that a business case that you really have what I call a power sponsor. You need to have a power sponsor, because a power sponsor is someone that has a strong vested interest in the outcome of what you're about to do. Because if you have a sponsor, I can pretty much assure you your business case will not survive. Your business case will not get approved. So you need to make sure you have a sponsor. You need to make sure you have a good reason why a change needs to be made within your organization. Because without that, step 2, you would die and need to go no further. Let's take a look at step number 3. Potential. Aim for the best. You want to look for what's the best performance possible. Because, again, I'm reminding you that you're about to spend and request corporate dollars. Now, here's a caution there, step 3. When I say the full potential, too many times we write business cases and we make promises. Promises that, oh, yes, we can generate this return on investment. But see, you make a promise that even after the project is done, after it's been funded and executed, that you're going to come back and justify, did we really achieve that return on investment? Did we exceed that return on investment? Or did we fail at doing what we said we're going to do? Because you need to have a post-mortem relationship with this business case. Keep your promise, make the promise, but keep your promise. Full potential. Don't go better. Go for best performance. Step number 4. Let's take a look. Diligent decisions. Now, this is critical also, because this is when you need to take the information you've gathered, all the requirements, all the things you need to say, all the things about functionality, because this is where I expect you to begin to perform due diligence. Perform due diligence. Identify, screen, choose alternative solutions. There's not going to be one answer to the problem that you're facing. There may be many potential solutions. There may be a whole lot of different things that you're looking at. So you got to make sure that you're looking at what's going to drive you to make you come up with the right solution. What are the alternatives? How are you going to make this happen? Step 5. Spreadsheet safety. Be careful with spreadsheets when you're doing and dealing with financial models. Because just because it was done in Microsoft Excel don't mean that it's right. You got to design and make sure you have a solid financial model that you're looking at. You got to make sure that all the formulas make sense. You got to make sure that everything you try to drive in here makes sense to whatever you're trying to work on. There's a lot of different tools out there that you can use to do financial modeling on. Make sure you have a solid financial model, because you can get in a spreadsheet and have a messed up situation. Do not rely on just spreadsheet to make financial decisions. And I'll give you some references at the end of the session, and also some tools that you can look at to make sure you're doing solid financial modeling. Let's take a look at step number 6. Step 6 is a top line. Quantity, impact, and the value. Listen, 2 key words here: impact and value. Impact and value. If you do this, what is the impact? The impact means that we're going to increase revenue. That the impact means that we're going to reduce costs. That the impact means that we're going to increase productivity by rolling this out. What's the impact? And at the same time, what value is this going to be for my company? What value is going to be for my organization? What value would this be for our clients if we did this? Again, you're building a basis to help you do a justification for your return on investment. So let's look at step number 7. Total cost. Cost is really serious, because, you know, I use this a lot, because sometimes people say, well, I'm going to go buy a car. And I say, okay, well, how's the car going to cost? Well, the car going to cost me $40,000. I said, wow, that's a big number. I said, but have you looked at the total cost of owning that car? They said, yeah, it's going to cost me $40,000. And I'm telling you, the total cost of ownership is much different, because you need to look at how much it's going to be for fuel for that car, how the maintenance is going to be for that car, how much is the car insurance going to be for that car. What about if you got to do some major repairs on the car? What if your oil pump goes out? You know, what are you doing? What is the total cost of ownership of the car? So what I'm saying here, you got to begin to look at what's the total cost. Identify, quantify, look at what's all in this investment. Because even when you roll this thing out, when you install or do what you're going to do with this business case, there may be a maintenance cost after this. You got to consider those costs. So what are the total costs? Not just the cost to get into the thing, what is the total cost? Let's look at step number 8. Item number 8, deal danger. Because here you're dealing with a whole lot of uncertainties. And when you're dealing with uncertainties, I want you to put a note here. When you're dealing with uncertainties, you must begin to do a very, very detailed risk assessment on what you're doing. You got to begin to look at, why am I in this situation? What do I need to adjust? What are the risk events? What are the probabilities of these risk events happening? You must begin to really look at risk, because you're in deal danger. Because you're getting ready to make a promise, probably to the board of directors of your company, or to a steering committee, or to some group in the organization. Your credibility is going to rest on how well you can make this deal. So you need to make sure that risk is a serious part of your analysis when dealing with a business case. Let's look at step number 9. So 9 says distill value. Here's what I'm talking about. Making sure that you got evidence. Evidence behind what you're doing. Have somebody else done this before? Have some industry done this before? Have some university done this before? What's the evidence? Because evidence deals with, have you done your real homework before you start writing this business case? Because if your business case cannot tell a story, you probably don't have a good written business case. If your business case doesn't just slap somebody when they open up and begin to read it and make them have an emotional reaction to your business case, you probably haven't written a good business case. Because without evidence, you can't tell a good story. So you got to make sure that you distill value in what you're doing and that the story comes across the right way. Let's look at step number 10. Profit projects. I talked about due diligence. See, perform due diligence. And because you don't go out and do good due diligence says you cannot write a business case sitting in your office. You go out into the organization. You must go out into the environment that's going to be impacted by this business case and do. I love a statement by AT&T a long time ago. AT&T had a slogan that said they're going to reach out and touch. Due diligence says you got to go reach out and touch. You go out to the organization, look at what the environment is. If you're a manufacturing plant, if you're in an IT organization or wherever, you go look at the environment, talk to the people that's in the current situation, talk to them about the problem, talk to them about root causes. You got to get out of your office with writing a business case. You can't write a business case sitting in your office. You can't write a business case by yourself. It's a team event. It takes a team, it takes a village to write a business case. You got to make sure you go way outside in the village. You may talk to the janitor. You may need to talk to some people outside your company. You may need to talk to some industry experts like gardener and forester. You got to do your homework when writing a business case. Remember here, you're making a promise. You make a promise to your company that if they award you this X millions of dollars to do this project, you're making a promise that you're going to return an investment back to them. You're going to give them something back. You're not going to send their money like you're at Walmart and they get nothing back. It takes a village to do this. So those are the 10 steps into writing an outstanding business case. But how does all this tie together? So let's look at the business case methodology. Because remember I said, you may know how to write one, but you also need to know the roadmap that you got to walk down through in order to be able to execute this properly. So here's what we got. I need a business need. What is a clear need, and it isn't really understood by everybody. Is the business need acute? Is there a complication to it? Is there internal, external environments going to affect? Because you may find out that some government agency which has total control over what you're doing. You may be doing something that the FDA is going to impact. OSHA may impact your business case. You may look at some other organization that's outside of your company. The business need. So when I do the investment, stay with me and look at this. Because what's the scope? Are you clear about what the scope is? Because if I'm not clear about what the scope is, I can guarantee you, I don't care what kind of investment profile you need, I don't care how bad you beg for money, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So let's look at the next piece here. The technology. What needs are we going to have in performance does the technology offer me? Now here's a caution right here. He's talking about technology at this point in the roadmap, in the methodology. I want you to understand that when I'm talking about technology, I'm talking about integrating people, processes, and technology. Caution. Here's my caution to you. Don't think on just talking about technological changes, because sometimes your business case could be written around how you're going to upgrade your people in your organization, or it could be around how you're going to change the processes in your company, or it may be technology, or it could be all three. So don't just drive on the technology, because the technology, buying some ERP solution may not be the answer. So you got to look at all three. You got to talk about the benefits. If you can't sell me on benefits, if you cannot tell me about operating improvements, if you can't give me some value, some benefits, if you can't tell me about incremental value, incremental benefits, I'm not going to sign off on a business case. Because all about spending company dollars for some reason to solve some problem, to get to the root cause of some problem, so that we can in turn improve our organization to better serve our clients and have a return on investment with whatever dollars we're spending. Okay? So real cost. We talked about cost before. You got to be careful about estimates, resource estimates, technology estimates, all these kind of estimates you're going to be doing. Get evidence. Look at historical projects in your organization. Look at historical projects outside your organization. What are you doing to have evidence? The cost that you came up with in your head don't mean nothing. It has no bearing on the business case. What is the evidence? Where do your costs come from? Are you talking about cost for people, cost for technology, cost for equipment, whatever the case may be? Have evidence. You talk to suppliers, you talk to other people. Have evidence. Make up costs. Because I guarantee if you make stuff up, your business scale is going to fail, your credibility is going to go down the tube. Have evidence. It's almost like watching the movie CSI. What is the forensic evidence? You have evidence to justify your costs. I am a fan of risk. I can tell you right now, I don't care how well you write the business case, if you write Murphy into your business case, you're going to have a problem. Murphy will visit you. Murphy today, because we live in an age of technology, Murphy back in the old days used to come on your project by himself. Murphy don't come no more by himself. Murphy shows up now, he brings his grandmother, his wife, his kids, uncle and aunt. Murphy's all over the place because we live in this digital world. We live in this world of internet. You must address risk in a very comprehensive way. You must address it, because if you don't do risk mitigation and have a risk strategy in place, I'm telling you, Murphy will wipe you out. Murphy's going to embarrass you in front of your leadership team. You got to have a risk mitigation plan in place. Then you got to deal with valuation. We talk about walking through the methodology here. You got to have valuation, because that is important for you to say, okay, if I have this cost, if I have these benefits, then the value of the cash flow that's going to come out of this. And see, when I talk about cash flow with project managers, a lot of them don't deal with cash flow, which is sad. You should not be spending your company's money unless you can understand and justify some type of cash flow analysis to say, here's what we're going to do. Here's what I can expect back in the first year, the second year, third year. You got to begin to talk about cash flow. What are the incremental gains to cash flow? How do I get my money back? What is my payback? We got to begin, the project managers begin to operate, act like business leaders, not just some PM somewhere sitting around doing projects. Those days are gone. Feasibility fit. What's the economic feasibility? Does investment make money? If you spend the company money, are we going to make money? Or are you just going to waste my money and spend it and say, you know what, boss? I brought it in under budget and ahead of schedule. I'm telling you right now, project managers, I say whoopee-doo. That's foo-foo. Take foo-foo to the bank. Your company can't take foo-foo to the bank. You cannot do this. You got to look at the economic feasibility, financial. You cannot afford this, because my company has to go borrow the money to do this project or to do this engagement, can't afford it, Can we pay back the money and still have a return on investment? Can we pay back the money and still have gain in our organization? You got to begin to talk about finance, asset feasibility. Will it work? The worst thing to do is spend company's money, have a big smile on your face, you bought it under budget, you bought it ahead of schedule, and it don't work. It won't work. You spend millions of dollars, a lot of people's jobs on the line with your project, you fail, people lose their jobs, and you lose yours too, all because you did not follow the proper procedures of writing a compliant business case. Guys, this is serious. Do no projects nowhere with a business case. Alternatives. Here you get into saying, what if? What if? Great project managers, not good project managers, but great project managers have a significant piece of what ifs. They have alternatives. They say, what's the next best thing? If this don't work, as I walk through the process of execution, what's my plan B? What's my plan C? Because if I don't begin to look at net present value, begin to say, what's my next best alternative? And also saying, how do I determine the next best thing? Based on what? Based on internal rate of return? Do I base it on return on investment? Do I base it on net present value? I'm here to tell you that you make alternative decisions by using validated and verified net present value. You make those decisions based on that. And then you say, what's my next best decision? You've got to have some alternative in place. If your only thing is you got one option, I tell you now, say hello to Murphy. Murphy will get you. If you got one alternative to your projects, Murphy will say hello. The next one. Even execution. Do you have a solid implementation plan? I think everybody needs to write that word down. Implementation plan. Because in order to drive what-if scenarios, it is driven by implementation plans. Okay? You need to recognize what are the benefits. You need to understand what commitments, what contracts. But your implementation plan is the thing that's going to help you move forward and bring forth the results and bring forth the return on investment. Writing this business case, guys, I just can't stress how hard and important this is to make sure you got the right one. Because I'm telling you, there are a lot of business cases today that are in what I call the business case graveyard. They have tombstones. On the tombstone it says, project did not work. On the tombstone it says, these 50 people lost their jobs. On the tombstone it says, our company return on investment was never there. On the tombstone it says that our company failed. On the tombstone it says all of these messages because people did not follow business case methodology and drive business case the correct way. Business case qualities. Business case have a quality component to it. And I don't mean quality from how well it's written. I'm talking about quality from the value that you drive. Is it clear? You know, can a 12-year-old understand your business case? If I pull a 12-year-old into the meeting and ask them to read the business case, can they say, I can tell you exactly what the story says? Communicate the story. If your business case is not telling a story, guess what? You don't have a good business case. Okay? It's accurate. Can I validate what I'm saying about the numbers in my business case? Can I justify what I'm saying here? I need to know. It's logical. Does it make sense? Because if it doesn't make sense, then we're up the creek. Now, financial models. I mean, does the numbers make sense? Am I driving it the right way? We got to make sure that the investment decisions being made based on accurate data. So you got to assign a grade to the quality and the presentation of the business case. Because if you're presenting this to the board, if you're presenting this to a steering committee, you got to have a way to grade the quality before you get there. The total investment score. So let's take a look at what we mean by that. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. Look, there are systems and tools that we have that will help you evaluate what I call the investment score, case grade. Okay, you walk down through it, and there's scores you receive. You know, scores up to 30, up to 20, below 30. But you got a score equal to or greater than 40, and you can justify based on the system that we use. Well, we can assure you that you're going to get full investment when your business case is presented to the board of directors or to a steering committee. If the score is equal to 30, greater than or equal to 30, you'll probably get pushback. They're probably going to push back, if you ask them for $30 million, well, we don't want to risk $30 million. Right now we'll give you a phased amount of $10 million because your business case really didn't tell us a good story, or they may like say resubmit it and rework the whole thing. If your business case got a below 30 score, they're gonna reject it. Actually rewrite it. They'll say this thing was dumb as a rock. No sense, no justification. They're gonna send you back and reject you, and your project will not go any further. Okay? Let's talk some best practices as we look at this. What are best practices? What are the business needs? And again, to look at business practices, and I begin to talk about everything that we look at from a business standpoint. We say, what's the business need as we begin to talk about best practices? Now, one of the things that we look at and look at best practices, I need to be able to talk about a couple things, and I need you to write some notes down. Now, I'm gonna take my time. I need to push you a little bit. Best practices always start with questions. Okay. Another is determine the degree of need. A third one is measure the current baseline performance, because again, this is very important. The root cause analysis and address the real problem. See, we are talking about best practice and look at the business needs. Let's look at another best practice. The investment. When we talk about the investment, here are 4 things you need to look at. Number 1, understand the scope of the impact. Number 2, spending investment was it logical. Number 3, your return on investment. Return on investment. Number 4, beware of outlandish claims. Be careful about what you're saying. Be careful, because remember that you are making a promise. You're making a promise, so you got to make sure that you understand and make the kind of promise you make. Let's look at other best practice. The technology. Here are 2 I want you to write down. Understand exactly what you're buying. Understand exactly what you're buying. No promises on something that you don't clearly understand. Don't talk about how complicated it is. Make sure you understand what you're buying. Number 2, determine the maturity of the technology. Are you buying leading-edge technology that haven't been proven yet? Are you buying old technology that's mature and very stable? Make sure you understand what you're buying, because that's going to impact the value of how whether you get approved or rejected. Let's look at the best practice. We talk about benefits. 2 things I want you to write down when we talk about benefits. Complete and realistic benefit model. We can tell you right now, this is where you would get your biggest argument when you present to a board or a steering committee. They say, how do you know these are benefits? Justify this. Whatever it is. So you got to be prepared to define the source of your evidence. Where is this from? Gardner? From Forster? From some other research organization? Or from historical data within your organization? The second thing I want you to write down on this particular one on benefits is use the realism of the benefits. How real is this? Does it make sense? You know, have your team get some arguments about it. You know, play somebody play devil advocate. Does it make sense? This is the best practice. Then we talk cost. 2 things I want you to write down. calculate costs correctly. Calculate costs correctly. Everybody said, well, we know we do that anyway. Well, we found that if you don't look at your incremental costs and define what that incremental cost will be, if you look at your total cost of ownership, you're going to miss something. Example I gave you about the car. What about insurance? What about fuel costs? What about maintenance? All those things. Calculate your incremental costs the right way. That's number one. Number two, capture the elements of cost. Capture the elements of cost. For example, you may be buying software. You may be buying hardware. You may be doing some outsourcing. You may be doing a lot of different things. What is the real source of cost? Again, best practices. How to drive that. Let's take a look at another best practice. Another best practice we talked about was risk. We already said that when we talk about risk, one of the best practices you can have is make you start out of the gate with evaluating risk events. Risk events. Now listen to me carefully. You write and investigate known, unknown risk. I'm going to say it again. You need to get known, unknown risk. You think, what the heck is that? When you get at the requirement or the problem in a business case, you'll be able to look at what are some known risks that could potentially happen with this project. Okay? Known, unknown means you know what the risk events are, but you don't know, it's unknown when they may occur. But you need to look at known, unknown risk. The second one you need to look at is unknown, unknown. Unknown says, I don't know all the other risks that could potentially happen. I don't know also when it may happen. So I don't know what and I don't know when. He said, Frank, you lost your mind again. How do I deal with that? When you deal with known, unknown risks, you're talking about making sure you have a good contingency dollars in your business case. Because things are going to happen that you can't see now, and you don't know when they're going to happen. And that's why great project managers plan for contingency in all their projects. So risk deals with unknown and known unknown. So to those on call that don't understand that, if you get it, hello to Murphy. Murphy will get you. Let's take a look at another one. Valuation. Talk about valuation best practices. I want you to look at this. Build a complete financial model for the investment. Build a complete financial model for the investment. And when I say the word complete, make sure you get all the stakeholders involved. Now, I want you to write this down. Because you start talking about valuations, there are two types of stakeholders that you need to be involved with this. The first one, I'm going to give you the name and definition. The stakeholder is called a project stakeholder. Project stakeholder. Here's the definition. Project stakeholder is anyone that has a vested interest in the outcome of the deliverables. Again, stakeholder. A project stakeholder is anyone that has a vested interest in the outcome of this business case. Those are people that are members of your team, members of the steering committee. Those, your sponsor, those are project stakeholders. The second type of stakeholder you need to consider when writing a business case are what we call ghost stakeholders. Ghost, G-H-O-S-T, ghost stakeholder. Definition. A ghost stakeholder is anyone that is not a part of your project, but has power over your project. Ghost stakeholder is anyone that is not a part of your project, but has power over your project. So who would fit in that category? Out the gate, someone not on your project but has power over your project. It could be a government agency. It could be OSHA. It could be the FDA. It could be the IRS. It could be whoever. Some government agency, or it could be some executive inside your corporation that don't like your project. That at some level try to stop this business case from being successful. You must be able to do that and understand who these people are in order to have the data to have good, strong valuation. Again, we're talking about best practices. You've got to begin to dive into this. Ability to fit is the next one. You got to consider the dimensions of, is this thing feasible? Is it big? Is it not going to work in this time? Because sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, we come up with these business cases that may be too early in your company. Your company may not be willing to take the risk on it, or your company may not be mature enough to be willing to deal with that type of business case. Is it feasible? We have the talent to do it. I have to go outside and get the talent. It's feasible. There's other things you need to look at around best practices for feasibility. Alternatives. Then we talked about alternatives. We said that I got to step back and begin to ask myself, I have to think thoroughly through alternatives. Here's a footnote. The thing is, when I come up with alternatives, when I'm dealing with a business case, I'm going to have at least 5 alternatives to the problem I'm trying to deal with. I want to have at least 5. Sometimes I want to have 7, depending on how complex it is. But at least I want to have at least 5 alternatives. Some of those 5 may be just totally wacky. They may be off the chain. They may be totally off the chain. We may think they may be dumb ideas. We may think they're dumb alternatives. But I'm saying don't try to grade them in that perspective. You need to come up with some alternatives that you think could be possible. But I try to come up with at least 5. The other thing is I'm always asking why. Over and over again with all my alternatives. I want to know about the why side when I'm talking alternatives. Let's go. Investment execution. What best practice? Use business case to execute. This is my document. This is my guide in life. So I want to make sure that I'm following some strong execution principles. I'm following some strong project management principles. I'm also going to look at assumptions. Remember right here? Because assumption-based will help go back. It goes back to tying to my risk. Because when you make assumptions, if you address those assumptions, you increase the risk of your project, the risk of failure. Let's know. Business case quality. I'm always looking for clarity. Clarity is one of the things that's going to help me drive my best practice. I'm always looking for accuracy. I'm going to ask each business case writer to include the shortest, sharpest summary possible. I want my business case from a quality standpoint to short, to the point, but tell a story. Tell a story. Okay? The investment decision. The investment decision, looking at logic. Sound modeling. All right, I'm looking at what's going to help drive the clarity of this thing when I talk about investment decision. So, when you about a business case, you can write a business case for a project, you can write a business case for a program, and a lot of you've done that. But I close by asking you, have you written a business case about you? Have a business case about you? See, this whole time I talk about project, I talk about program, I talk about all these things. But what if I ask you to write a business case about you and present that to your boss? What would that business case say? What story can you write about yourself? Can you justify yourself? Where did they come to keep you? Can you justify yourself? So in summary, I've talked about why business cases can lead to wasted billions of dollars in business world. We address business case methodology. We stress very strongly, don't buy, look at the need to buy the business case before you buy technology. Too many times we rush out and buy that new fangled thing called technology, and we have no business case for it. We talk about 10 steps to writing an outstanding business case. And close by talking about the methodology and some best practices. I close by saying that before we go to this. Guys, I want you really to begin to think about business cases. You need to have a business case before you start writing project charters, before you start writing project documents, before you jump into Microsoft Project and start talking about the work breakdown structure. You need to have a business case. Somebody somewhere in your company needs to have the business case written and approved. We need to also make sure that if you are the one driving the project and somebody else wrote the business case, you need to make sure you have access to the business case. No project, no program without a business case. And with that, I turn back on the media, and we'll take questions if anyone have any questions, because I'm just absolutely a nut. I'm passionate about you must have a business case. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. It was a very educative session, and yes, we do have a couple of questions that our attendees have been sending us during the webinar. The first question that we have is, what if I cannot get to my power sponsor without presenting my business case to someone else first?
I don't have a problem with that. If you need to present your business case to someone else first, I present it to them, but I would use the word draft. I think it's outstanding. I think that presenting it to someone else first before I get to my power sponsor is good exercise. I think I will also have a watermark on my business case that says draft. I'm asking them for feedback. I'm asking them for their thoughts, their opinions. I'm asking them for some other evidence that I may not have. I think that's an outstanding idea. Because when you get to your power sponsor, you got to be on your A game. And if you're not on your A game, you may lose out on this opportunity. So take advantage of presenting it to some other people, some other groups, some executives before you get to your power sponsor. I think that's an outstanding practice to go with.
Thank you. The next question that we have is, can you talk a little more about how I communicate risk in my business case? Is it just quantifying numbers?
It's more than quantifying numbers. Because I talked about risk events, a risk event is something that could impact the success or failure of your project. And every requirement that you have in that business case, every requirement in there, you should at least have 3 or 4 risk events. And every risk event, there should be probability. But your main focus should be on the risk event itself, not the probability. So it's not about just coming up with a number, because, and please, listen to me carefully. Never, ever, in a business case or in a risk mitigation plan, never, ever use the word high, medium, and low. That's so off-chain, I can't even express it to you. Do not ever use that in a business case. Never use that in anything you write. High, medium, and low. What do that mean? Ambiguity on top of ambiguity. Not about just the numbers. It's about the context. It's about the content. It's about the viability of the risk events in the case also.
Right. We have a participant who wants you to expand a little bit on the post-mortem relationship with business case that you spoke about.
Yeah, the post-mortem says, are you willing to stand up in front of the firing squad in your project and say, again, I stand by what I said in my business case? Or are you going to run and hide? Because post-mortem says you need to go back and do a post-mortem on your project and say, yes, let's do an evaluation. Let's back and compare to what we said the project will deliver. Let's go back and talk about the cost, the return on investment, the investment return, all those things. If you believe in your business case, you should be willing to stand in front of the fire squad of your corporation and say, I'm willing to stand here and take whatever, because you are willing to prove what you said is your word. You got to keep your word, folks. Write something on paper that you're not willing to stand by and keep your word. Remember, your credibility, your name is on the line. Post-mortem is extremely important to do that.
We have time for one final question, Frank. So the final question is, what if one of my stakeholders has a different idea of value than I do? The numbers are never good enough. What if the numbers are never good enough?
But that goes back to, do you have a methodology? So you have a methodology that you and your company, or you and your boss, or you and your sponsor have agreed to. The debate goes away. When you have no roadmap, when you have no agreed-to process, when you have no agreed-to methodology or standards, yes, because now you leave the gate open. You have what I call open source. I can have an opinion. You have a process in place that is agreed to, a methodology that's agreed to. You can't debate that. And man, I'm gonna show you some resources right now that'll help take the sting out of it. I strongly recommend the resources I'm about to show you here. Developing business case. This information will be somewhere out there from our team. But a great resource for you to read. It's a very short read. It's like a pocket guide. The BCA business case analyst This is the person, analysis going to be done by Jane Broderick. Business case, this is an outstanding one by Marty. Marty did an excellent job on this. Like when you go inside his book, his website is there, Solution Matrix. They do an outstanding job. In addition to that, they have a software that will help you quantify your business case. I endorse this. They got an outstanding software tool to help you with this. Let's move to the next. Here's the resources for you that do software business cases. Here's some outstanding resources. Don has done a great job on this. I've used this stuff over the years. Making the business case with Ian. I've known for a long time. And then the other one is reading about improving your business process. What I'm telling you is that when you have a process in place, when you have evidence in place in the process, nobody can argue with you. Now, they can disagree with you. They agree. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with disagreeing with it. But I challenge them to bring facts and evidence to the business case table. I challenge them on that. If you follow these simple things we talked about today, I can assure you will stand in front of the firing squad because I stand on my words I've just given you in this webinar. I know this work. This will save you a lot of headache. It will increase your viability in your company. It will increase your credibility in your company, and you become a more valuable asset to your company. With that, I thank you guys very much, Leader. It's been a fantastic opportunity. I love sharing information with you guys. The information will be somewhere out on our website. You're going to get your PDU certificates and all that wonderful stuff. But more importantly, go back and listen to this again. Listen to the recording again. Go to those resources and check them out. Mita,
thank you, Frank, and thank you, everyone, for submitting your questions to us. I'd like to let you know that we do have a parallel discussion initiated on our LinkedIn account. So I encourage you to join our LinkedIn account and Frank's Twitter and LinkedIn accounts as well, and we can carry the discussion forward on this very subject. Before we close for the day, I'd like to remind you that we will be sending out a follow-up email tomorrow with a PDO certificate and a link to this recorded webinar. Our next webinar is going to be on April 17th, 12 p.m. EST. We look forward to seeing you there. Thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.